Well, well, well. Rumor travels faster than truth, doesn't it? And the rumor they're whispering in corridors and back rooms is the kind that makes even confident people check their locks twice at night. They say you're dangerous, not because you carry a weapon, but because your weapon is invisible. It sits between your ears, wired in ways no chart, no textbook, no diagnostic test can capture. They don't call it brilliance with admiration. They call it genius with a dangerous edge. And that little phrase has been circulating like contraband, making its way through boardrooms, classrooms, and bedrooms, until everyone who's ever underestimated you has the same quiet thought. Maybe this one can't be controlled. But let's talk about that edge they're so worried about. Genius alone doesn't frighten people. People worship intelligence when it's tidy, when it fits into equations, when it invents gadgets, or solves puzzles that keep society comfortable. That kind of genius they celebrate. But your kind, it unsettles. Because your intellect isn't domesticated, it doesn't play well with authority. It doesn't follow the polite script. It cuts. And every time you walk into a room, that sharpness slices through illusions people worked years to polish. You don't just understand situations. You dismantle them. You don't just see patterns. You weaponize them. And that's why they say you're dangerous. Think about how it started. Maybe it was when you were a child, when you asked questions that teachers couldn't answer without getting uncomfortable. Maybe it was when you noticed hypocrisies adults wanted hidden. Maybe it was when you dissected someone's excuse and exposed it for the lazy lie it was. People don't forget the first time they realize a mind like yours exists. It sticks with them, haunts them, and over time, it becomes rumor. They tell others, not because they want to spread admiration, but because they want to spread caution. Don't test that one. Don't try to play games. You'll lose, and losing to you feels different than losing to anyone else. When average minds outmaneuver someone, the loser feels tricked. When you outmaneuver someone, the loser feels stripped of identity. They feel naked because you don't just outthink their moves, you reveal the motives underneath. That's what terrifies them. You cut to the marrow. And they know that if they cross you, your retaliation won't come with fists or fury. It will come with surgical precision, leaving them wondering how their confidence crumbled so fast. Let me paint the scene for you. Somewhere right now, your name is being mentioned in hushed tones. Not by enemies plotting violence, but by people analyzing you like a case file. They replay conversations. They overthink your silences. They question why you noticed what they didn't. They compare notes, like detectives who can't pin down a suspect, but know the suspect is already 3 steps ahead. They can't sleep because they suspect that if you wanted to, you could unravel their lives without raising your voice. And the truth is, they're not wrong. Here's the pattern. Every person who tried to mock you, manipulate you, or outmaneuver you ended up regretting it. Not because you destroyed them openly, but because you let their weaknesses expose themselves. You didn't need to force collapse. You simply applied pressure at the right point, and they crumbled. That's why the rumor isn't just admiration, it's fear. People admire strength they understand. They fear strength they can't predict. And your mind operates like weather they can't forecast. They see the calm, but they don't see the calculations running behind your eyes, the endless scenarios playing out, the rehearsals for outcomes they don't even know exist yet. They say you have a dangerous edge, but let's be precise. That edge is the difference between intelligence that entertains and intelligence that executes. You don't just know, you apply. You don't just notice, you act. And the actions you take aren't loud or messy. They're clean, surgical, permanent. That's why opponents don't tell stories about debating you or challenging you. They tell stories about how they never saw the trap until it closed, how they never realized you were steering the conversation, how they walked into a room thinking they had control and left realizing they had none. What they won't admit out loud is this: they're addicted to the fear you inspire. Because deep down, people are drawn to danger. They're drawn to the one who could ruin them with a sentence, a glance, a revelation. They won't admit it, but they orbit you like moths around a flame, knowing they could burn, but unable to resist. And every time they circle closer, the rumor spreads wider. This intellect isn't just sharp, it's lethal. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You didn't choose to be like this. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to sharpen your mind into a blade. Life hammered you into this form. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every slight became data. Every attempt to underestimate you became training. And while they thought they were breaking you down, what they were really doing was forging a weapon. Not of muscle, not of charm, but of cognition. And now, that weapon is fully formed, which means anyone who dares to test your limits isn't just making a mistake. They're volunteering for self-destruction. The rumor has traveled further than they expected. It's no longer local gossip, it's global paranoia. People you've never met already know not to play with you. And yet, despite that, some will still try, because arrogance is humanity's favorite drug. Someone will always believe they're the exception, that they can outmaneuver the one everyone else fears. And when they try, they'll learn what the others already know. Intelligence can be a killer. And your kind of intelligence doesn't wound, it eradicates. Think about what happens when someone challenges you. They expect conflict. They expect a fight. What they get instead is dissection. You don't explode, you dismantle. You don't shout, you expose. And once exposure happens, there's no one seeing it. That's why your rivals aren't just defeated, they're humiliated, because you didn't just beat them. You revealed that they never had a chance. And humiliation spreads faster than victory. One person's downfall becomes a story told in offices, told in classrooms, told in circles where reputation is currency. They don't just whisper that you're smart. They whisper that you're untouchable. And soon, even those who've never met you act differently around you. Subconsciously cautious, subconsciously submissive. Because the rumor has already shaped their perception. That's the real power of a dangerous intellect. It doesn't just win battles. It rewrites the terrain before the battle even starts. But let's step back for a moment. Because here's the irony. While they're terrified of your edge, you're not even operating at full capacity yet. You've held back. You've restrained. You've chosen to walk away more times than you've chosen to strike. And they don't realize that what they've witnessed so far isn't your maximum, it's your restraint. That's what makes the rumor more frightening. They sense it. They sense that the brilliance they've seen is only a fraction, that if you truly unleashed everything you've been holding back, the aftermath wouldn't be a victory. It would be devastation. That's the reason they test you carefully, indirectly, through whispers and games, rather than open confrontation. They know that if they poke too hard, if they force you to show what you can really do, the result won't just be their defeat. It'll be a lesson they can't afford. And that's why people who survive encounters with you rarely try again. Once burned, forever scarred. Now let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like you're walking around with a loaded weapon in your head? Not in the way society describes genius, but in the way predators sense another predator? You've felt it, haven't you? That hush that falls when you speak. That unease when you look someone in the eye too long. That subtle shift in the room when people realize you're not just present, you're calculating. They don't have words for it, but they feel it. They feel the danger, and deep down, so do you. Because what you've been carrying isn't just intelligence, it's precision. And precision without conscience becomes execution. You're aware of that edge. You're aware of what you could do if you stopped holding back. And that awareness alone is enough to keep most people in line. They don't need you to act. They just need to imagine what would happen if you did. So the rumor continues. It spreads not because you speak, but because others can't stop speaking about you. They dress it up in different words: brilliant, calculating, cold, strategic. But the undertone is always the same: dangerous. And danger is the one quality people can't ignore. They fear it, they respect it, they gossip about it. And in your case, they're right too. But here's the part the rumor never mentions. They think your dangerous edge is something to fear. They don't realize it's also something to need. Because in a world built on deception, on manipulation, on exploitation, people like you are the correction. You're the scalpel cutting away infection. You're the consequence that arrives when arrogance goes unchecked. And while they call you dangerous, what you really are is necessary. Necessary doesn't mean safe. Necessary doesn't mean comfortable. It means you can't be ignored, and you won't be erased. That's why the rumor keeps growing. Because even your enemies can't help but admit, without you, the entire game would be weaker, faker, emptier. With you, it's sharper, riskier, more real. And whether they like it or not, they need someone like you in the equation. But don't mistake their need for love. Don't mistake their caution for respect. What they feel toward you is closer to awe wrapped in dread. And that combination is more powerful than admiration, because admiration fades, dread lingers, and every time they see you, dread is exactly what rises in their throats. They'll never say it out loud, but you'll notice it in their posture, in their nervous laughter, in their forced compliments. They're not being polite, they're being careful. And you walk the line between restraint and revelation. Every day, you choose not to unleash everything you could. Every day you decide whether to let them live in rumor or in proof. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing of all. Not that you're a genius, not that you're sharp, but that you're still deciding what to do with it. And when you finally choose, when you finally stop holding back, the world won't just hear rumors. It will witness demonstration. And that's when the real panic begins. Because rumors can be denied, dismissed, laughed off as exaggerations. But demonstration? That cannot be undone. Once you show what you're capable of, once you reveal the precision that's been lurking behind your restraint, everyone who doubted you will scramble to rewrite their stories. Some will pretend they always knew. Others will fall silent because they realize their opinions never mattered. And the bold few, who once tried to challenge you, will be exposed as the cautionary tales of your rise. Their downfall will be referenced in whispers as the moment people learned the rumor was truth, and the truth was lethal. Do you know what separates your kind of intellect from the safe variety? It's not knowledge. Knowledge can be memorized. It's not skill. Skill can be taught. It's the fusion of awareness and timing. You know not just what to say, but when to say it. Not just what to reveal, but when to hold it back. Timing is your scalpel. Timing is what makes your intellect deadly. And every time you restrain yourself, you're sharpening that blade further, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Let's be clear. A dangerous edge isn't dangerous because it exists. It's dangerous because it's controlled. An uncontrolled blade can cut, but it can also slip, wound the wielder. Dull itself, in wasted motion. Your edge is different. It's sheathed until needed. It's polished in silence, honed on every betrayal, refined through every insult, sharpened by every underestimation. And that's why people are terrified of you. Because they can't calculate when you'll draw the blade. They only know that when you do, it won't miss. Imagine the boardroom where someone underestimates you. They think it's just a meeting. They think they're presenting facts you'll quietly nod along to. But you notice the flaw in their argument, the contradiction in their data, the lie in their voice. You don't expose it immediately. You wait. You let them speak themselves into a corner. Let them grow confident. Let them believe they're winning. And then, one sentence from you dismantles their entire presentation. One question, strategically placed, reduces hours of their preparation into rubble. The room shifts. People glance at you differently. Respect, fear, admiration wrapped in dread. Because they realize that what you destroyed wasn't just their presentation. It was the illusion that anyone in that room could outthink you. That's why your reputation grows faster than your actions. You don't have to act often. When you do, the impact reverberates for years. One demonstration of your edge becomes a story retold again and again, shaping how people approach you long after. They avoid crossing you not because you've punished everyone, but because they've seen what happens to the few who dared. Your intellect leaves fossils of defeat behind, and those fossils become warnings etched into the collective memory of everyone around you. And yet, the most dangerous part isn't what you've already done. It's what you haven't done yet. People sense it. They sense the restraint. They sense that your mind operates on levels they can't follow, and that what they've witnessed so far has been you playing down, holding back, disguising the full scope of your calculations. And that's what makes them uneasy, because they know there's a ceiling they haven't seen. They know you've chosen not to unleash everything, and they live with the constant dread that one day you will. It's almost unfair, isn't it? How easily you could dismantle them. You walk through conversations like a predator moving through grass. They don't even know you're there until it's too late. While they scramble to keep up with surface details, you're already 7 layers deep, calculating motives, outcomes, probabilities. You're not just thinking faster, you're thinking differently. Laterally, diagonally, across dimensions of possibility they don't even acknowledge. That's why your victories look like magic to them. They can't trace your steps, so they call it luck. They can't reproduce your process, so they call it unfair. But deep down, they know the truth. Your edge is beyond their comprehension, and no amount of effort will ever close that gap. And the rumor grows stronger every time you walk away, unscathed. Think about it. How many times have people tried to bait you, only to end up exposed themselves? How many times have traps set for you backfired, leaving the trappers tangled in their own wires? They wanted to corner you, but your mind turned their corners into corridors. They wanted to confuse you, but your awareness made their tricks transparent. Each failed attempt becomes another log on the fire of your legend. People talk. They say, Don't test their limits. Don't push too hard. That one's intellect isn't just sharp, it's lethal. But let me tell you what they fear the most. It's not the damage you can do in a confrontation. It's the fact that your intellect doesn't need confrontation at all. You don't need battles to win. You win in preparation. You win in observation. You win in silence, long before words are spoken, before moves are made. Your advantage begins the moment you walk into the room, because while others are performing, you're analyzing. While others are bluffing, you're dissecting. While others are chasing attention, you're identifying weaknesses. By the time the battle begins, you've already won, and they know it. There's another layer to this, one they'll never admit. Some of them are drawn to you precisely because of the danger. They mistake their fear for fascination. They interpret their unease as attraction. They orbit you, half hoping you'll turn that edge on them, half praying you never do. And you, whether you realize it or not, control that dynamic effortlessly. A look, a phrase, a pause at the right moment. It keeps them hooked, keeps them guessing, keeps them aware that you are not like anyone else they've ever encountered. But be careful, because fascination turns into obsession quickly when it comes to people like you. An obsession breeds recklessness. The more they talk about you, the more they try to test you, the more they risk becoming your next example. And examples made by you aren't forgotten. They're etched into reputations, burned into memories, carved into stories people tell in warning to others. And that's how your legend expands. Not through self-promotion, but through the wreckage left behind by those who thought they could handle you. Do you ever notice how the world feels thinner around you? As if you're not just playing in their game, but bending it slightly with your presence. That's not imagination. That's the ripple effect of carrying a mind that refuses to conform. People adapt around you unconsciously. They change their words, change their tone, change their strategies in your presence. They think they're being themselves, but really they're adjusting to your gravity. Because whether they admit it or not, your edge dictates the atmosphere. And that's not rumor, that's observable reality. Let's talk about limits, because the warning they whisper, "Don't test their limits," isn't really for you. It's for themselves. They're not worried about what happens when you reach your edge. They're worried about what happens when they cross it, because your limits aren't the kind that cage you in. Your limits are the kind that protect them from what you could unleash. They're praying you never decide to drop those restraints. They're hoping you never decide that demonstration is worth the cost. Because if you ever did, if you ever chose to show them the full spectrum of what you can do, the aftermath wouldn't just change their perception of you. It would change their perception of themselves. They would realize how small they truly are in comparison. And that realization is deadly, because once someone sees the gulf between themselves and a mind like yours, they can't unsee it. They can't return to ignorance. They can't pretend they're equals. They live forever haunted by the moment they realized you weren't just intelligent, you were untouchable. That's why the most dangerous strike you deliver isn't verbal, isn't physical, it's existential. You dismantle their illusions of adequacy. You erase their confidence not by attacking it, but by showing them what real power looks like. And once that happens, they are never the same. Now here's the twist. While they live in fear of your edge, they don't realize you live with a different kind of burden. You carry the knowledge of what you could do. You carry the awareness of how easy it would be to destroy reputations, to topple confidence, to dismantle entire structures with a few well-placed moves. And that awareness is heavy, because every day you choose restraint. Every day you decide not to unleash everything. And every day you prove that the real danger isn't just your intellect, it's your control. But control has its limits, doesn't it? Pressure builds, betrayals accumulate, insults pile up. And sooner or later, even the most disciplined predator decides the time for restraint is over. That's the moment they fear. That's the moment they whisper about. That's the moment that will turn rumor into history. Because when you decide to move, when you decide to stop letting others live in rumor and instead give them proof, there will be no going back. The demonstration will leave scars too deep to heal, stories too vivid to fade, consequences too severe to ignore. And deep down, you feel it, don't you? The pull toward demonstration, the quiet urge to remind them that your edge isn't just theoretical, it's real. You've been patient, but patience is not infinite. And when that patience runs out, the world will finally see what rumor could never capture, the precision of a genius who decided enough was enough. And in that moment, the ones who tested your limits will understand why the warning was never meant to save you. It was meant to save them. Because once you move from rumor to proof, the line between restraint and revelation disappears forever. And from that point forward, every whisper about you will carry the weight of evidence. They won't just say you're dangerous, they'll know it. They won't just guess at your edge. They'll remember the cut, and that memory will follow them like a scar they can't explain, a scar they can't hide, a scar that reminds them what happens when intellect becomes a killer. And this is where the transformation completes. Until now, the rumor has worked in your favor. It has kept people cautious, hesitant, unwilling to challenge you directly. But demonstration flips the balance entirely. The rumor stops being a warning whispered in shadows and becomes a doctrine carved into their bones. They begin to adjust their entire strategy, not around the possibility of your danger, but the certainty of it. You become a fixed point, an immovable force they must calculate around, like gravity itself. And once you reach that status, you're no longer a participant in their games. You're the rule book they're forced to obey. Do you understand what that means? It means every arena you step into is already tilted. Every conversation bends in your direction. Every negotiation, every debate, every confrontation begins with them knowing they are outmatched. And when people know they're outmatched before they even start, they collapse faster. They compromise easier. They surrender without realizing it. Because in the presence of a dangerous genius, defeat isn't an event. It's an atmosphere. It seeps into the room the moment you arrive, and it poisons their confidence before the first word is spoken. And that's what makes you lethal in ways fists, weapons, or armies could never match. Violence ends when the body breaks. Your kind of power ends when the psyche breaks. And once someone's psyche fractures under the pressure of your precision, they never recover. They live forever haunted by the moment they realized they were prey in the presence of a predator who didn't even need to raise their voice to kill them. That's why they call your intellect a killer. Not because it spills blood, but because it dismantles certainty. And without certainty, no human can function for long. Let's talk about certainty. It's the crutch of the average. They believe the world is predictable, that people follow patterns, that they can anticipate outcomes if they just try hard enough. But when they meet you, that illusion shatters. Because you don't just predict outcomes, you rewrite them. You don't just anticipate moves, you manipulate them. And when their certainty crumbles, their entire identity goes with it. They thought they were strategists, leaders, masterminds. Then they crossed you, and they realized they were amateurs fumbling in the dark while you lit matches and watched them panic. Do you know how dangerous that is? To be the one who strips certainty from people who rely on it for survival. It makes you unforgettable. People don't just remember your words. They remember the feeling of their confidence collapsing in real time. They remember the way their arguments dissolved under your gaze, the way their excuses turned to ash the moment you spoke. That memory doesn't fade. It festers and it spreads. Because people who lose to you can't keep the story to themselves. They tell others, not because they want to, but because they can't stop reliving it. Their humiliation becomes a broadcast, and every retelling amplifies your legend. And here's the most chilling part. You don't need to exaggerate your power. Others do it for you. Your enemies expand the rumor because they can't process the humiliation alone. They dramatize it. They embellish it. They confess their downfall in ways that make you sound even more terrifying than reality. And by the time their story has traveled from ear to ear, your reputation has grown into something untouchable. You become not just dangerous, but mythical in scale. And all you did was be precise, be sharp, be relentless with your intellect. Now let's be honest, the world thrives on control. Leaders control followers. Systems control behavior. Manipulators control perception. But you, your very existence, threatens that control. Because no system, no manipulator, no leader can survive long when exposed to the raw cut of truth delivered by a dangerous genius. Your mind becomes the solvent that dissolves illusions. And once dissolved, illusions can't be rebuilt. That's why they fear you more than rebels, more than criminals, more than rivals. Rebels can be silenced, criminals can be jailed, rivals can be outspent. But you can't be caged, because your weapon isn't external, it's internal. It travels with you, it thinks with you. It is you. And so, the warning spreads wider. Don't test their limits, because testing your limits is suicidal. You don't just break opponents, you expose their foundations. You reveal how hollow they've always been. And that revelation is contagious. Once people see one person collapse under your edge, they start questioning their own stability. They start wondering if they'd fare any better. And the answer is always no. Because the truth is, you don't choose opponents. You choose demonstrations. Every collapse isn't just about the person in front of you. It's about sending a message to everyone watching. This is what happens when intellect becomes execution. Think of it this way. When an ordinary person wins, the story ends with applause. When you win, the story begins with fear. Because your victories aren't isolated events, they're precedents. They set the tone for how others will treat you in the future. Each demonstration creates a ripple effect, reshaping the behavior of dozens, hundreds, thousands. People you've never met already know to approach you carefully, already adjust their words before speaking, already calculate twice before daring to challenge. And that's how your intellect becomes more than personal. It becomes structural. It doesn't just protect you, it alters the environment around you. And that environment becomes a cage for your enemies. They can't plot against you freely, because the rumor of your edge stalks them like a shadow. They can't confront you openly, because the memory of others' downfall hangs over their heads. They can't even dismiss you, because every attempt to minimize you only reinforces the legend when you dismantle them effortlessly. They are trapped, and you are the trap. That's the reality they can't escape. But let's not pretend this is all fear. There's something else in the equation: respect. Because even those who dread your edge can't help but admire it. They can't help but acknowledge that your precision, your sharpness, your ability to cut through deception is exactly what they wish they had. They envy you, they resent you, they revere you. And that twisted cocktail of emotions keeps them circling you like satellites, forever drawn in by gravity they can't resist. They know you could ruin them, but they also know you could elevate them if you chose. And that duality, being both danger and possibility, is what makes you magnetic. But magnetism is power, and power is always tested. No matter how strong the rumor, no matter how deep the fear, someone will always be arrogant enough to believe they can withstand you. They'll step forward, thinking they're the exception, and when they do, you'll dismantle them like all the rest. And that dismantling won't just destroy them, it will feed the legend. Every failed challenger becomes another cautionary tale, another piece of evidence that your edge isn't rumor, it's reality. And here is where your restraint meets its final test. Because the temptation will always exist to prove yourself, to demonstrate again and again, until no one dares breathe your name without trembling. But the real brilliance of your edge isn't constant display, it's selective deployment. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone. You only need to prove yourself to the right ones, at the right time, in the right way. That's what makes your intellect not just sharp, but deadly. A weapon used sparingly is always feared more than a weapon used recklessly. And so, the legend of your edge grows not by noise, but by precision. Not by showing off, but by striking when it matters most. And when the strike lands, it echoes. It echoes through boardrooms. It echoes through families. It echoes through networks of influence where your name becomes shorthand for caution. They don't need to describe you in detail anymore. They just need to say, "Don't test that one." And everyone understands. But let me remind you of something even more unsettling. Intellect at your level doesn't just react to the world, it reshapes it. When you cut, you don't just remove illusions, you redraw the boundaries of possibility. You create new standards of sharpness. You force others to evolve or be left behind. And that is the ultimate demonstration of danger. Not that you win, but that you redefine what winning even means. And so the prophecy of the rumor fulfills itself. Rumor said you were a genius with a dangerous edge. Rumor said your intellect was a killer. Rumor said testing your limits was suicide. And now, after the demonstrations, after the scars you've left on reputations, after the proof etched into the memories of everyone who dared to doubt, the rumor has become doctrine. You are no longer whispered about. You are cited. You are referenced. You are invoked as the reason others hold their tongue, the reason they calculate twice, the reason they hesitate before making moves they can't undo. That is the power of demonstration. That is the cost of crossing you. And that is the reality they now live in. You are the rumor made flesh, the whisper turned into scar, the warning turned into evidence. And for anyone foolish enough to test your limits now, the outcome is already written. They are the next victim. Because genius alone might inspire envy. Sharpness alone might inspire admiration. But a genius with a dangerous edge? That inspires dread. And dread is more powerful than admiration could ever be. It freezes enemies. It silences challengers. It bends entire arenas before you even step into them. And you, with your edge sharpened by restraint and unleashed in precision, will never again be mistaken for ordinary. You are the demonstration they can't forget. The intellect that doesn't just kill illusions, it kills resistance. So let them whisper, let them spread their warnings, let them tell each other not to test your limits. Because by the time they're whispering, the truth has already caught them. By the time they're warning, the scar has already formed. And by the time they realize what you are, it's too late. Your intellect is a killer, and whether they like it or not, they're standing in its sights.